Rosewood Manor had stood empty for decades, its once grand facade now draped in shadows and ivy. The locals of the small, sleepy town of Blackwood whispered about the place, sharing tales of its former inhabitants, stories of sudden disappearances and a cursed family line that had vanished without a trace. When James Whittaker inherited the manor, he saw it as an opportunity for a fresh start. A historian by trade, he was drawn to the manor's rich history and the challenge of restoring it. As he drove up the gravel path for the first time, the overgrown weeds and broken windows seemed to whisper secrets on the wind. Undeterred, James was determined to uncover the manor's mysteries. The first few nights were uneventful. The manor, despite its eerie appearance, seemed stable. But on the fourth night, James awoke to a strange noise, a rhythmic thumping from somewhere within the house. He attributed it to the old pipes and settled back into sleep. The next morning, James discovered an old diary hidden beneath a loose floorboard in the library. The diary belonged to Evelyn Rosewood, a daughter of the family who had lived there. As James read through its pages, he learned of her growing fear of a dark presence that had begun to haunt the manor. Her last entry was a desperate plea for help before it abruptly ended. As James continued his restoration work, he felt an increasing sense of unease. Shadows seemed to move on their own, and doors would creak open or slam shut without explanation. One night, while researching the manor's history in the library, James noticed something peculiar. The diary's final entry had been written in a different hand, its tone now accusatory and threatening. The thumping noises grew louder, more insistent. One evening, James decided to investigate, following the sound to the manor's basement. The stairs groaned under his weight as he descended into the darkness. The basement was cold and damp, filled with old furniture and cobwebs. The thumping led him to an old iron door, its surface rusted and covered in grime. With a deep breath, James opened the door and found a small, dimly lit room. In the center of the room was an old rocking chair, gently swaying as if someone had just gotten up. The walls were lined with portraits of the Rosewood family, their eyes seeming to follow him. On a dusty table lay a broken mirror, its shards scattered across the floor. As James approached the mirror, a cold draft swept through the room, extinguishing his flashlight. In the darkness, he heard a whisper, a chilling voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. "You should have left us alone." Quote. Suddenly, the thumping grew deafening. The rocking chair began to rock wildly, and the portrait's eyes seemed to glow with a sinister light. James tried to run, but the door slammed shut behind him. He fumbled for his phone, using its light to guide him, but the room seemed to stretch endlessly, the walls closing in. Desperate, James smashed the broken mirror with a piece of wood he found on the floor. As the shards scattered, the thumping stopped, and the room fell silent. He turned to see the portrait's eyes